So we'll get started. Robert, if you want to kick us off with existing buildings.
Sure. Thank you, Katie, and thank you for everybody for attending. Robert Kraus, Chair of the Existing Building Committee. I can advance the slide here. There we go. We meet almost every month. We have the last Monday from 5:30 to 7 p.m. Normal meeting these days, about 20, 25 people, although I'll say our email list is pretty expansive compared to that. The commitment is generally a kind of choose your own adventure. A lot of members, that means an hour and a half for our monthly meeting, participating in the discussion, learning a bit here and there. For others, they're very active in subcommittee work or other tasks, kind of helping the committee achieve its objectives for the year. So if you thought our name was ambiguous, we are all things existing buildings. So in the Bay Area, that means mostly retrofit, a lot of discussion of alteration and repair provisions, IEBC discussion, local ordinances, things of that nature. So what that means in practice, more recently, we've had a very active non-ductile concrete subcommittee. They worked in coordination with the city of San Francisco, performed an inventory of, actually, you see here a historic Sanborn fire insurance map, noting buildings with older concrete construction, compiling that into a database, and that's what you see down here is kind of the spatial distribution. We also had other teams that were working on analytical studies for both archetype buildings, which you see here, kind of a multi-family residential building, as well as even inventory level assessments of kind of the vulnerability of that population. So more recently, in the last month or two, we've been working on the commentary to the IEBC A chapters. That was in coordination with the SEAONC EBC. And for the SEAONC group, we took on the chapter A2 for kind of tilt-up style buildings, as well as we had several members help Southern California with the A4 soft weak open front wood framed retrofit commentary. So that's coming to a close now. Is a good example of kind of the stuff we're working on. Going forward for 2020, 2021, more of the same. A lot of the meetings focus on kind of local news, ordinance, what people are experiencing. They can be COVID related or just existing building provision or municipality related. We aim for technical presentations every meeting to keep it interesting. Sometimes it's every other meeting, but that's the objective. And then subcommittee work will continue. We expect soon here, as the city continues their interest in non-ductile concrete and pre-Northridge moment frame buildings, we'll be part of the advisory working group that the city's assembled for stakeholders. So we'll have some input to that process, continuing on the non-ductile concrete subcommittee's work. Additionally, code commentaries, there's some interest in a CEBC commentary being resurrected, as well as IEBC code change proposals and papers coordinated with the state EBC committee. So past chair is Keith Palmer, SGH. He managed a lot of that non-ductile concrete committee work you saw. Our current vice chair is Christian Botto. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at my email here, rkraus@wje.com. I'll hand it off here to Art.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. And Art will be presenting for the Construction Quality Assurance Committee next.
Hello, I'm Art Dell with Soha Engineers, and I'm the chair of the Construction Quality Assurance Committee, CQA. Where's my click? Construction quality, it's all about inspection, right? Well, inspection is pretty important. Somebody should have caught this before the inspector, but fortunately the inspector was there. And I'm sure you've seen plenty of this. Nailing up a storm must be pretty high load here. A lot of nails, but it totally missed everything. A lot of people don't know that intumescent paint requires inspection, including inspection of the substrate. These beams actually showed up primed with something that wasn't compatible with the intumescent paint, had to be sandblasted off. Here's your classic lousy fit up of a fillet weld, huge gaps. Fortunately, the inspector saw this and he wasn't going to tolerate that. It would have all disappeared. They had to cut it all off and shine it up. Make it nice. This was a rainy day. It was going to rain. The inspector said, maybe you don't want to pour. They wanted to pour anyway. Fortunately, the inspector was telling the contractor that this was not going to fly. They managed to get a whole herd of people in there and vacuum up the water, shovel it out, and managed to complete the pour. Did I click that one? And if they're having trouble getting the screw anchors to fit, they can always cut them off. The inspector won't know unless the inspector's there verifying the installation. So inspection is important, but construction quality really starts with the owner, their primary, the contractor, of course, and then the engineer. And that's what we're all about. The engineer is the most important part, really. The design, the specs, the statement of special inspections, and of course, the structural observation that the structural engineer actually does. So we meet on the third Tuesday at 5:30 p.m., currently by Zoom. Our committee has design engineers, testing lab engineers, product rep engineers. We don't currently have any representatives from contractors or building officials, but we'd love to get some. We are also pumpkin carving judges, and apparently we're going to be judging the gingerbread house. Also, we do a lot of publications and seminars. This was a really good one. WPS review. Engineers need to know how to review WPSs. We've got a document and a seminar on inspection of wood framing. And of course, our flagship document is the guidelines for special inspection and structural observation. We're putting out a supplement now for 2019. We've also got a guideline for wood inspection and the old aggregate project. This is all about concrete aggregates that are available. You can see that we need to update this one. So our charges are to put out a supplement for the special inspection guidelines. We got to put out a supplement for the wood guidelines. This is both to update them to the 2019 CBC. We're also going to be paying attention to code changes for chapter 17 of the IBC. We've been a little lax on that for some years, and we're going to get back into that. If you're interested in the code changes, get in touch. We also are putting out a little series of FAQs. These are nice little teaching moments about all kinds of things that happen during construction. The next one coming up will be about, do you really have to do load testing of post-installed concrete anchors? So we would like you to come join us. Do you want to make a difference in your projects? Do you want to know more about it all? I'm the one to contact. There's my email. That is correct. I'm Art Dell, but my email is Odell, and call my mobile. That's the only way you'll get me.
Great, thank you very much, Art. Our next presentation will be from the Disaster Emergency Services. Molly and Stephanie are the chairs, and Molly will be presenting.
Thanks, Katie. Yes, I'm Molly Cito, and I am currently one of the co-chairs of the Disaster Emergency Services Committee. We meet every second Tuesday of the month at 5:30 to about 6:30. It is all virtual. And we currently have about 10 active members and always looking for more. For chairs, the commitment monthly commitment's about maybe 8 to 10 hours, and approximately 2 to 4 for members. And really, there's varying levels of commitment people have provided. So, the Disaster Emergency Services Committee was really developed to assist local communities in coping with disasters, whether they be natural disasters or man-made disasters. We currently focus primarily on earthquake response, but we are hoping this year to kind of expand that a little bit more. And below is a list of our committee focuses, and I'll kind of explain them a little bit more in our examples of our committee work. We usually host every 18 months a SAP training, which is a safety assessment program evaluator training that's run by the Cal OES, which is the governor's office, California. And what we do is we train engineers in order to be able to evaluate and inspect buildings after an earthquake and tag them, green, yellow, and red in order to let the public know whether they're safe to re-enter. We typically do this in person, but this year we did do our first virtual training. and I think it was pretty successful, and we're going to consider potentially, continue it virtually going forward. In conjunction with that SAP training, we do maintain a Reserve Corps list of people who are trained and want to be on a Reserve Corps. And this Reserve Corps, if we get contacted by a local jurisdiction after a disaster, and they need help for evaluators to come and help evaluate their buildings after an event, they'll contact us, and we'll contact our Reserve Corps and ask for volunteers who would like to deploy, and then we bring those names back to those local jurisdictions. Our latest deployment was in October 2020 for the Napa fires. We also assist the City of San Francisco in their BORP program, which is the Building Occupancy Resumption Program. That's where local building owners can hire structural engineers to kind of look at their buildings and evaluate their buildings now in order to come up with a kind of rapid, specialized response plan to their specific building. And hopefully that after an earthquake event, that those engineers will come and evaluate their building and hopefully speed up the process with which they can kind of resume using their building. We also support the urban search and rescue task forces. We have a lot of our members, or a few of our members are on the couple of the task force, local task force. We often help recruit for the urban search and rescue during our SAP trainings. Some exciting initiatives this year. We like to continue to maybe bridge the gap between USAR, which is Urban Search and Rescue, and DES. Stephanie is this year becoming a member of the task force, so we want to help support them more. We are currently want to expand the DES mission to incorporate responses to fires due to the considering recent history. And one of the big initiatives that we just kicked off is helping the SEAONC board come up with a disaster response plan that they would have to kind of help prepare responses after any kind of disasters. First we're going to focus on earthquakes, but we hope to expand that to kind of any kind of a disaster in our local community. And so, yeah, if you want to get involved, please contact us with my email address there or Stephanie's, or you can email the committee directly at des@seaonc.org. Hopefully we'll see you guys out there.
Great. Thank you, Molly. And our next committee presentation will be from Alan for the Code Committee.
Yes, thank you. So this is Alan Robinson with Twan and Robinson Structural Engineers here as chair of the Code Committee. I have been chair for a number of years, but yeah, we would like to get some more participation in here. And for some reason, I don't seem to have there it goes. Meetings at the moment, we are sort of based on the schedule of the standards and codes. So recently we have not had any meetings. So, but the time has now come that certainly code, the IBC and the IRC will need to have potential code change submitted by early next year. So we've got a year to figure that out, but it does mean we need to start soon. There are a couple standards that will be up for the public comment period, so we will certainly take a look at this. So the average hours per month is really based on what you want to do. There are some members who have in the past done a lot of work, and those, if they are part of a standards group or something like that, material standards, you can spend a lot of time on it. I personally am part of the Masonry Code, so I've spent a lot of time on that at times, but when, codes happen on 3 to 6 year cycles, so it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to spend all that much time at on the off years. The real idea of what we want to do is make the codes and standard development process easy to understand and help the engineers go forward. So we're working on development, certainly looking at ASCE 7, ACI, Masonry, IBC. Certainly in the past, we have been much more involved with the IBC and the CBC. But at this point, we are, a lot of that stuff has gone to reference of the reference standards, either it's ASCE 7 or the materials codes. So we don't have as much going on the IBC front. Most of that is now by reference, and same with the CBC. So it is, the code committee has sort of changed over time. So we're now working more to try and get people involved with the standards development and everything else. And so we're really trying to get people to know how the standards are developed and how people can get involved with each of those. So as I said, this year, we're certainly going to look at the public comment period for ASCE 7 and TMS, the Masonry code. But also we need to start looking at preliminary code changes to the IBC and the IRC. They are due early next year, in January of next year. So we really have only a few months to try and figure out what needs to change. Now, of course, this is for what will become the 2024 IBC and will become the 2025 CBC. So at this point, it is something that we'll not necessarily look at right away, but it's an important piece because you got to start soon to get stuff that will eventually be, the code that you will work towards. So we're trying to develop better understanding of the code development process. So we do have meetings to discuss the process, and we want to provide opportunities for members to get involved. The real issue is that, we would like to get people on the material standards. The building codes are easier because they are open public hearings. So those occur usually in April and October. So they have been virtual for the past year or so, but it is certainly starting next April. We may have meetings to attend to. We certainly do. We coordinate with the state code committee or general engineering committee. We also coordinate with NCSEA, the general engineering committee. So we are, we take our work there and then they move it forward as well. So as I said, I am Alan Robinson. You can reach me at my email address, and you can also reach it at the code email address for SEAONC.
Great. Thank you very much, Alan. Our next committee is the Resilience Committee, and Melissa will be presenting about what they're doing.
Thank you, Katie. I'm Melissa Meikle with WJE. I am the chair of the Resilience Committee. Right now, our meetings are the second Wednesday of the month. They're virtual, and our next one happens to be today, the 13th at 5:30. They're about an hour, so 5:30, 6:30. Our active members, while it's the list we have on right now is about 67. Our active members, I'd say, is probably a little bit less than 10. It's a small group right now. So we're looking to build it up and get more active members involved. Not too much commitment per month so far. So some examples of what we've done in the past. Our group has been gathering kind of information about other organizations and collaborating with other resilience-based groups because it's such a fast-changing environment. Some of those organizations we've worked with have been resilience frameworks, the USGBC release system, and the Alliance for National and Community Resilience. We did an internal review and also looked into the ANCR benchmark system. We've collaborated with SEAONC committees. We had done a joint presentation in the past with the San Francisco Tall Buildings kind of study on that, and have done contributed to local presentations. I believe the last one was done in February of 2020. It was at a SEAONC dinner meeting. And the other was an AIA panel discussion, Adaptation for Resilience. And we also include updates with information from SEAONC and the NC-SEA resilience committees and what they're doing as well. So resilience is still relatively new to the structural engineering community, and there's been a lot of topics within resilience to explore. So these are just some of the topics that we've been looking into is multi-hazards, local resilience, policy and planning, and then a little bit more of the technical aspect as well. So just one of the multi-hazards that we've been looking into has been wildfires specifically, because it's kind of the hot topic right now. And it's a hazard that was very apparent and that we all saw in 2020. So we have a working group on that, one on resilience-based inventory, and one of the little bit more technical topics is we're collaborating with seismology committee for that. Some other charges for 2021 we have are looking into earthquake anniversaries. So next month happens to be the 50th anniversary for the San Fernando earthquake. So our past chairs have been Jonathan Bucklew with Nabi Yusuf Associates, and our current vice chair is Jakob with KPFF. You can reach our committee through resilience@seaonc.org or through my email, melissa.m.meikle@gmail.com. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. David will be presenting on the Professional Practice Committee next. Take it away, David.
All right, thank you, Katie. I'm David Kane with Harold Kane Structural Engineers and current chair of the Professional Practice Committee. Let's see, we meet the first Monday of each month, usually around 5 o'clock, unless it's a holiday. We have 6 current committee members. We're a group of owners or principals in our firms, plus a attorney who practices construction law. And the time commitment for our group is about the 90-minute meeting once per month. And then depending on how much you want to be involved, 1 to 2 hours per week, usually doing some research, investigation, and helping write newsletter articles or white papers. And there's a shot of our group in the background there. It looks like we're in serious thought discussing important matters there. Let's see, some examples of the committee's work over the years is shown here. We tend to write guidance on interpreting codes, legal guides, contract documents, assisting with code implementation, and just things that would affect how businesses operate. Some of the current items we're working on for this year is we're trying to assist DBI along with the Construction Quality Assurance Committee to update their special inspection and structural observation program. It hasn't really been updated in about 20 years, and the codes have changed significantly since that time. And so we're just trying to help them get moving forward with that process to hopefully result in better outcomes on projects and for make things simpler and better for engineers. We're also generally monitoring and helping provide feedback for local building code amendments that various jurisdictions may be thinking of, specifically trying to look at how these code changes may impact the practices of our engineering businesses. We're also reviewing, looking at recommendations for contract provisions that affect risk and liability. So limitation of liability, indemnification items, and to see if we can help get a consensus on better terms and conditions for our contracts. If you want to get involved, again, we're a small group right now. We'd love to have a few new members. We encourage principals and other business owners to join and attend our meetings. And additionally, we'd also encourage engineers at the start or midpoint of their career to join. And there's ways that everybody can participate in our group. It's a great way to learn from other senior engineers, and love to have you join, along with my co-chair or vice chair, Mark Gilligan. Our contact info is there, and please email us if you're interested in joining and participating in the committees. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, David. Our next presentation will be from the Sustainable Design Committee. Gina and Nick are the co-chairs, and they'll be presenting now.
Great, thank you, Katie. Hi, everyone. I'm Gina Cope with Home Structures, and I am a co-chair of the Sustainable Design Committee alongside Nick Miley. We've been running the committee for a few years now, and we just want to share with you all some of the work we're doing, and maybe by sharing our goals and achievements, you'll find an area that you're interested in. Okay, so just some quick facts. We typically meet the last Wednesday of every month during lunchtime. Recently, it's been video calls through Microsoft Teams, all remote, of course. We have about 10 active members, a much longer email list, and maybe about 5 or so that float in and out. But luckily, we have a passionate group of people, although we're small, and I've really enjoyed working with all of them. As far as the time commitment, it can be as simple as just attending the 1-hour meeting a month and just learning. But we'll just note that the more involved you become, the more you get out of the committee. So, if you volunteer to do research or compile a newsletter, that's a way you can get directly involved and just dive, headfirst into the sustainable design community and get a lot more out of it. Here are just some examples of the work that we do within our committee. Last year, we conducted a research project by collecting concrete mix designs throughout California and running life cycle assessments on the different mixes based on strength and other characteristics of the mix to output their global warming potential. This research then allowed us to support the developments of the Bay Area Low Carbon Concrete Code. So that was really exciting to see a local jurisdiction then take on our data as more of a benchmark to help them determine GWP limits in concrete mix designs. And finally, we have been recently developing written guidelines for specifying sustainable concrete. Many engineers now are looking for ways to have an impact on the embodied carbon in their projects. So we're putting together a reference, just a written reference with examples of updates that you can implement into your specifications or general notes to produce concrete mixes with lower embodied carbon. And I'll pass it over to Nick to continue with our charges.
Thanks, Gina. Hi, I'm Nick Miley with KPFF in San Francisco. And just talking a little bit more about what we're going into for 2021. I think the big push that we're all fighting for right now is to expand the structural engineering industry's knowledge and understanding of carbon and climate impacts. And the image on the right is from the EC3 tool, which is one of the new pieces of software that's out there to help us understand where we can reduce carbon in our structural designs. And there's just a lot of information to learn about and study. So we want to be collaborating with other committees like the SEI's Sustainability Committee and the Carbon Leadership Forum. So the Structural Engineering Institute, SEI's Sustainability Committee is behind this new SE 2050 commitment, which is trying to get all of our emissions from structural materials down to 0 by 2050, which is in line with the kind of Paris agreements and sort of the best research that scientists have come up with for kind of a deadline to get to net zero. So we are looking for ways to work with SEI to help them. And we're also really involved with helping spread, like, what is SE 2050? How do you join? What can you do locally to help your firm sign up to it? So that's going to be a big focus for us going into this year. And we're also going to be doing some guest speakers, and like Annie Perkins, who will be coming to talk about SFI as a wood standard for sustainable wood. So we said Gina and I are the co-chairs. Our past chairs, Megan Stringer, can send us emails at our addresses here, or just reach out to sustainable@seaonc.org. Thanks.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Nick. And our final presentation for today is from Jakob, who is the chair of the Seismology Committee.
Hey, this is Jakob for Seismology Committee. I'm a current chair, and I can't move the screen. So if somebody else can move the screen, I'll see it now. So our meetings are last Tuesday of the month at 5:30. We're meeting currently via Zoom. Most of the time we have either technical presentation, or we have code provisions or research discussions. We have very active subcommittees that you can also join if you join the Seismology Committee. So we have concrete subcommittee that is currently looking on a ductile coupled shear walls design example. We have a steel subcommittee that is finishing up on two-way moment frame example, and will be determining the next topic for 2021. Our wood subcommittee is looking into CLT diaphragms and modeling of diaphragms. And our ground motions subcommittee is currently deciding for the next topic. They had very productive 2020, so they will be. And here you can see a couple of examples of what are the products. So either we often publish either in structured magazines or a white paper, or at SEAONC convention. A big part of 2021 for Seismology Committee will be our SEAONC University Research Program. We selected 4 topics on which we will be working with master students at UC Berkeley. These topics are retrofit of column splices of existing steel buildings, then ground motion matching study, seismic detailing of gravity system and diaphragms in podium structures, and distress transform anchorage. The main task of the Seismology Committee will be to review and provide comments on an ongoing task of the master student, and potentially provide some a little bit closer advising to the master student. Our current vice chair is Rahul Sharma, and our past chairs are Chris Dunk and Andrew Sauber. You can contact us at seismology@seaonc.org. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jakob. Thank you to all our chairs for presenting. So now we will open it up to questions. So again, if you have any specific questions you'd like to ask right now, you can just type it in the chat, and I'll direct it to the appropriate chair. And then there's also, again, just to remind you, in the chat, there's a link to a Google document if you'd prefer to contact chairs that way. So we've got some questions. David, you mentioned that professional practices could be beneficial for younger engineers to join. Could you maybe elaborate why a younger engineer would get involved in contracts and legal stuff?
Yeah, I think especially anyone who is aspiring to be a principal of their firm or own a firm in the future, there's not a structural engineering business school to go to, and this is probably about as close as we get, where you can learn and hear about all sorts of business related issues and issues affecting the practice of structural engineering. So we'll cover things ranging from technical engineering provisions and analysis and topics like those, all the way to human resources, discussing standard of care, liability, risk, and without fail, usually, whether it's informal off the record discussions, we'll usually have one or two sort of case studies come up and share stories, and you'll get to hear from and learn through the experience of other senior engineers through their perspective, what they've done, what's worked, what hasn't over the years. And again, it's just a great training ground to get to learn how to run a business, how to become a principal engineer.
Great, thank you. And we have a question for Molly and Stephanie for DES. The question is, with the COVID situation, when will the next SAP ATC 20 workshop be presented?
Yeah, that's a good question. So because of COVID, we actually just held our last SAP ACT 20 training this past November, and it was the first time that we held it virtually. It was very successful, and we had about 100 participants. And so I think moving forward in the next 18 months, we're just going to gauge the situation with COVID, but we are definitely looking into potentially keeping an option of having a virtual training, as this at least provides an opportunity for people who aren't in the area to attend the training as well.
Great, thank you. And let's see, another question. So Nick, you had mentioned that the Sustainable Design Committee works with the state Sustainable Design Committee, and then also on a national level. Can you maybe explain a little bit more your involvement with those groups? And,
Yeah.
and how committee members could get involved on those levels as well?
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah. So we meet with all the other MOs in California on a bi-monthly basis. And we will collaborate on different research ideas. So one of them being the concrete mixed design study that Gina mentioned. So we worked with engineers across California to collect and analyze all of those mixed designs we received. So that's one level. And then there's the Carbon Leadership Forum that we have, like someone who just recently joined the committee is now our liaison to the Carbon Leadership Forum. So there are a lot of ways to get involved with different organizations and kind of liaise, and you don't need to know a whole lot of prior information, but if you can kind of attend some of those other committees and report back to us and help us all share and learn together, then that would be a useful way of getting involved. We've also been, as one of the more active sustainable design committees in the country, we've been involved with the NCSEA as well in helping set up their national chapter for the Sustainable Design Committee.
Great, thank you. We have another question here. Guess I'll direct it to existing buildings, although if any other committee chairs want to chime in. And the question is, do committees plan to continue a virtual component of their meetings after COVID? I think this is a broader SEAONC question, but I know existing buildings has historically met in person, so.
Sure, yeah. We have, at least for the last several years, had simultaneous, in-person meetings at SGH's offices in the city with Zoom or something similar. I think it's always been Zoom. That's not to say it's, everybody knows it's not the easiest to do a mix of both, but we've always had people that engage from the calls and participate. So that is our intent going forward, but we'd like to get back to at least the contingent of the people meeting in person at the same time.
Great, thanks, Robert. Yeah, I'd imagine that'll be how most committees operate from now on. And then another question, I'll direct it to Melissa and the Resilience Committee. What would you say are some of the benefits that members could get out of joining your committee?
Yeah, thanks, Katie. So since, as I mentioned, resilience is still relatively new, and it's a relatively new committee. I believe it got started maybe in 2018. I'd say that it's perfect for just, if anyone has a specific interest at all in resilience, I just welcome to anyone to join to dive into what they're passionate about. We're pretty fluid with our agenda this year. So like I mentioned, we're looking at so many multi-hazards aspects of resilience. We can kind of tailor it to a little bit, include more of your interest in it too. So it's pretty easy to come into the group not knowing anything, and then you can learn more and become an expert and make improvements kind of in your knowledge base. So it's a pretty easy one to walk into not knowing anything, and you'll learn a whole lot. So we hope to see you at the next committee meeting.
Great, thanks, Melissa. Another kind of similar, well, I guess, Art, I'll ask you the same question I asked David, which is, CQA seems like maybe you would need to have more experience to get involved. But what kind of benefits would there be to younger engineers just starting out their careers in joining construction quality assurance?
Well, one thing we often find is younger engineers don't know much about construction. They will have great education, but they haven't been out in the field much. And one thing that tends to happen sometimes is they get thrown out of it and perhaps could flounder a bit. So, come to us and you'll find out a whole lot more about what goes on out in the field. I actually started as an inspector myself. I didn't become an engineer till I was 35 or so. And shortly after I got registered, I joined the CQA committee. And personally, I had a lot of experience because before I was an inspector, I was also just a construction worker. So there definitely is a benefit for young engineers. We would like to have young engineers because they're energetic, their education is more recent than most of us old codgers on the committee. And they can learn a lot and help us quite a bit just by getting involved.
Great, thank you. And we have another question here for you, Melissa, asking if you could talk more about past and planned future collaboration with other efforts related to resilience.
I was going to say collaboration with other committees and other state level.
Yeah, that's the question is just other efforts. So I think other committees and the state level makes sense. Yeah.
So definitely one area that we're working on right now is we're trying to build a wildfire working group with the state level SEAONC. We've got a handful members there who are interested, and within already, I know the resilience community, some people have expressed interest in that. So we're trying to build a little bit, bring the two together and work on a more joint effort for that. That's just one aspect. We do plan on working with other committees and probably NCSEA resilience going forward in our future work as well. Oh, and another one we are collaborating with is kind of on the technical side of resilience, is we're working with the seismology committee on that as well.
Great, thank you. Well, it looks like that's it, unless anyone has any more questions that they want to type in. As promised, we are raffling off a couple $50 Amazon gift cards, and the winners are, I don't know if you could hear that. We have Lauren Posey, who's hopefully still on the call. And
Hi, yes, I'm here.
oh, great. Thanks, Lauren. And then also Alan Kren, who is also hopefully still here. Looks like you are. And so the SEAONC office will be contacting you to get those to you. It'll just be email with a code for those. And then just a reminder that next week, same time from noon to 1 on Wednesday the 20th, we'll have presentations from our engagement committees. So every committee that wasn't on this presentation event will be presenting next week. And then in 2 weeks, also from noon to 1 p.m., the board will be doing a town hall. So you can ask, hear what the board's been up to this year, any specific questions you have for the board, come prepared to ask those questions. So thank you so much to our chairs for all your hard work. Thank you for presenting today. Thank you to everyone in the audience. Again, if you are interested, feel free to email any of the chairs directly for their provided email addresses, email the SEAONC office, or use the link to the Google document in the Zoom chat. So we will leave it there. Thank you very much.